What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Welcome, everybody, to episode 123 here. Steve, just about a year ago, I think it's a year and a day ago, you and I were jumping on for the first ever emergency podcast edition of Tablesetters when Juan Soto signed late night or like right after dinner time with the New York Mets at their winter meetings. And today, just a year later or so, much different breaking news for those same New York Metropolitans.
For sure. And it's an unusually quiet day one that we're kind of eulogizing today. And then we moved into day two, which was much more exciting. So it gave us a reason to hop on here and have a conversation, because you and I were texting earlier today of we want to give everybody an update on what's happening in the winter meetings, but we could sit here all day and conjecture and talk about what could be. We wanted some meat on the bone, and early morning, not really early, about to be the afternoon, gave us some really meaty topics to dig our teeth into. And you mentioned the Mets are involved. And also, we got some of the big fish starting to fall off onto the reel.
Yeah, and once some of those big fish start going, usually there's a little bit of a domino effect for some guys, and I think we might see that over the next couple of days. I mean, all the talk really was that, hey, a lot of these big free agents are not going to sign for a while. It's going to be super slow, and everyone's focused on the trade market right now. And then you get a couple big ones today, and obviously Edwin Díaz leaving the New York Mets, spurning the New York Mets, and we're getting literally more information in kind of as we speak right now. At just about 9 p.m. Eastern time. But to go to the mighty Los Angeles Dodgers, back-to-back champs, back end of the bullpen before Roki Sasaki kind of saved them was their biggest question, as Tanner Scott had not been living up to his $20 million a year, 4-year deal, and wasn't really even involved much in the playoffs, or if at all. And now Edwin Díaz is back there. So like one of the only holes they had, which may not have been a hole anymore if they wanted to leave Roki there for a year or two. And then now all of a sudden they have tons of options. Like if Tanner Scott gets right, you got Tanner Scott back there. Maybe they use Roki there for a little while, and Edwin Díaz, like suddenly, I mean, that's a pretty tough 7th, 8th, and 9th inning if that's how they go about it.
For sure. And that's the big story here. And we'll just lead right into it. Usually we have our opening say, but what you guys are talking about is Edwin Díaz signing with the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have agreed to a 3-year, $69 million contract with the aforementioned Edwin Díaz, making him once again the highest paid reliever in baseball by average annual value. This deal, Devin, also includes $4.5 million in deferred salary per year, giving the luxury tax present value of roughly $21.1 million annually. But in real terms, this is still a massive and aggressive financial commitment to what the Dodgers looking for. You mentioned the late inning dominance, looking to secure that. And there's a lot of places we can go here. We can take the Dodgers angle, we can take the Mets angle, we can take really just the Diaz angle of why he chose to go over to LA. And he opted out of the final 2 years, $38 million remaining on that 5-year, $102 million contract he previously signed with the aforementioned New York Mets. This decision proved to be perfectly timed leverage play for him. He betted on himself. Instead of taking on the remaining guarantees, Diaz secured an extra year, got $31 million more in total money. The Mets, I think that's where we should start, making an effort to retain him, reportedly offering 3 years, $66 million. They had some slight deferrals, but the Dodgers pushed past their comfort zone and closed the deal. So what's your initial thoughts? I saw you went live or posted a reel on our Twitter with your initial reaction. Has any of that changed as far as like more of these details coming out?
Yeah, I'm going through all of it, man. As a hardcore Mets fan, I feel like I've been through a roller coaster of emotions and reactions today as this story kinds of trickle out. And I had a feeling that there was going to be little bits and pieces coming out here, like in the coming hours or days of like, there's more to this, because a lot of it just does not smell right. But I will tell you, so when I first saw the news, Edwin Díaz to the Dodgers, my initial reaction was actually not like anger. It was like, that was one of my suspicions when both of us have said it a few times on this podcast since the offseason started. You can go back to our free agency draft prediction. I took Edwin Díaz back to the Mets as my number one free agent prediction in that draft. But when saying it, I said, I do feel like the Dodgers and maybe Yankees are lurking here a little bit. I'm a little worried about that. And sure enough, Dodgers were definitely lurking. When I saw the news initially, when we did not know the years and value yet, I didn't even get that mad. I was like, all right, they gave him the mega deal he was looking for, probably 5 years, something like that. All we kept on hearing was that the sticking point for the Mets and Díaz over the last couple weeks was that Díaz wants 5. The Mets apparently were willing to go to 4. So it must be something like that. All right, that's my reaction. Let's spend this money elsewhere. At least we had Devin Williams as backup here. Let's counteract this. And then it turns out the report goes to what you just said of 3 years, $69 million. And at that point, before I even saw that the Mets almost made the same offer, then I was mad. I was like, how did this dude get away for a 3-year deal? Like, what's going on here? And then obviously an hour or two later, you see the 3-year for $66 million offer the Mets made. And now I was mind boggled. I mean, $1 million a year more per year. Like, that's what he left. Like, what is happening? Again, a lot of this just did not pass the smell test. And even more concerning is that Diaz did not circle back to the Mets to give them that final chance at an offer. And this all kind of reeks like we've seen free agents do that before, and it's always, it's never taken well by the fans and the team and the ownership. But in a way, it's like I don't see Edwin Diaz as that kind of dude that just wanted to get out of here. But obviously, there's more and more conjecture out there. But that was my initial reaction. Like, how do you let the guy get away for a 3-year deal when apparently he wanted 5, and the Mets were willing to go to 4? But he didn't go back to them, and the Mets apparently had made it clear to him that like there was wiggle room in that $66 million offer. Clearly, he was dead set on resetting the closer market and setting a new record of AAV, which he did at the 23 million a year mark. I know you can talk about the deferrals, which takes it down a bit, but that's where I was in the beginning of the day. If we're going timeline, I think it's changed for me a little bit. But when you saw it, I know not a Met fan, but like, were you shocked? Were you not surprised? How'd you feel?
I mean, the same thoughts went through my head as well. Obviously, the emotional attachment's not there, not being a Met fan, but seeing him go to the Dodgers doesn't surprise me. Obviously, we saw what happened last year in the postseason, almost cost them the title. The bullpen needed work. They were always lurking in the grass there. And also, you tie this with, and I'm not saying that the Devin Williams 3-year deal they gave him $51 million had all to do with like they were going to let Edwin walk because they made the offer to him. But I think at this point, it makes the Devin Williams deal much more important to them because now Williams, we're expecting him to rebound to elite form. A lot of people are looking at the advanced stats. We talked about it last week. The move will look like a smart pivot and really a cheaper elite closer on their end. And if he struggles while Diaz dominates in LA, all I can think about is the conversation of the second guessing in Queens will be absolutely relentless, even though people are not going to look at the full story. The Mets made an effort to go there. Diaz didn't circle back, as you mentioned, but by rejecting that $22.2 million qualifying offer, Diaz also triggers the draft compensation. The Mets will receive a compensatory pick. I understand that's not that big of a deal after the 4th round, but the Dodgers will surrender their 2nd and 5th round selections, lose $1 million from the international bonus pool. All that stuff does play a part here, but it just feels like you said Diaz wanted to be in LA. It seemed like he made the choice because the money was close. He didn't circle back for whatever reason. I'm not saying there was bad feelings between the two, but it feels like he decided, I want to be showcased in Los Angeles on a World Series team.
Well, we've gotten some other layers here. We're peeling this onion back a little bit. So like little things have come out and theories have come out, and then more concrete stuff has started to come out. So originally after this, when all Met fans were on Twitter being like, how could this be? He's leaving for $3 million more. Like, what? Come on. Now he love it in Queens. He loved the fans. He loved the theatrics they put around him. Good in the clubhouse, one of the best guys in the clubhouse from what I've heard. So you see a couple theories. Apparently someone tweeted about how Diaz's brother spent some time in LA when they picked him up for a little while, and he raved about the organization, but they also DFA'd him. So like, I'm not biting into that one. I'm not saying he didn't say it was great, but like, first of all, I don't think any of these players need a direct family member to tell them how great the Dodgers organization is. We hear that every damn day. Like, it's not just about the money. They're good in every facet. Yeah. We've heard it a million times. Okay. So I don't think that's necessarily part of this. I don't think it hurts, obviously, but there is also a little bit out there apparently that he took it pretty hard that they got rid of Jeremy Hefner, their pitching coach. Wasn't a big fan of that. Must have had a close relationship. That I can buy into. I think some of these players, when coaches that they get along with and they feel like brings the best out in them specifically or personally, don't like to see a guy like that go and have to readjust to somebody new. So that I can buy into. I look at this whole offseason now, and honestly, even more than the offseason, like a terrible ending to the regular season. And then since then, Nimmo waives his no trade clause, which was kind of shocking to go to Texas. And he says it's because they convinced him they're trying to win. But like we know the whole narrative around the Rangers right now is trying to cut payroll. So I don't know if he truly bought into that. So like you buy it, you go into this and it's like a little fishy. Like a guy like Brandon Nimmo, who seemed like such a fabric and so beloved to your fan favorite, and he seemed to want to like he's actually said out loud that he was like thinking about getting his number retired one day and being like an all-time Met. For him to like just waive his no trade clause pretty simply, you put that on top of this, and then you think about the Adam Ottavino trashing Carlos Mendoza and how he runs his bullpen guys into the ground. Okay, now you're starting to put a theory together. You think about the Lindor McNeil, another fight this year. Okay, so the clubhouse thing is starting to feel like more of a real thing, less made up. And let's not forget they let their first base coach go to their rival, and that might not sound like much to the casual fan, but this first base coach helped Juan Soto steal tons and tons of bases. Like he's a weapon out there. So like all these things are starting to be like, what are you guys doing in the front office? This looks really, really bad. Like I jokingly said this in a comment on someone's post, but like at this point, obviously David Stearns, I would think, has more planned. I sure hope so. But at this point, he's got to hope that Marcus Semien hits 40 bombs and Devin Williams saves 50 games. Otherwise, like, we're going to try to kick this guy out of the front office as quickly as we can. There is more coming out here. And I think this is interesting and kind of goes into this theory a little bit. Before the show, I was writing some notes down and kind of just all my thoughts so I could get everything out. And one thing I said is maybe he didn't like some of the things the Mets were doing. The Jeremy Hefner thing I already mentioned, trading a guy like Nimmo away. Maybe a player that's been around this team for a while might be thinking like, I don't really like that. They're kind of like tearing down what we've had here a little bit. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if he didn't like them signing Devin Williams. I don't know why I haven't had this thought before, like a kind of a threat to his position. And sure enough, about 35 minutes ago, Jeff Passan tweets out that part of this is that Edwin Díaz did not get a heads up about the Devin Williams signing, and that at least somewhat goes into this decision not to give the Mets a last shot at matching or beating the Dodgers offer. So here's what I'll say. That reeks of inexperience on David Stearns' part. And he's experienced. That is like minor league shit. That's like brand new. You know what? When Brody Van Wagenen was our GM, from an agent turned GM, that's something I would expect from a guy like that who had never had the position before, who somehow kind of got into that. That is just JV Bush League crap. If he did not give his star closer, who they knew they wanted to try to get back, a heads up, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. We'd like to bring Devin Williams in, but we still want you here. It's not a threat to you. Like, we want both of you in the bullpen. You did not give this dude a heads up on that move. I feel like that's GM 101. Like, good relationships with your players. This is painting more and more of a picture of some of these guys not being able to stand the way David Stearns pompously walks around this team and runs this team. And even in the interviews I've seen with him today, whether it be on SNY or MLB Network, he cannot start an answer without having this shit-eating grin on his face. Meanwhile, knowing the fan base is furious right now, and he cannot get this stupid grin off his face as if he knows better than everybody when he answers every freaking question. So right now, the crosshairs are on David Stearns and David Stearns only. When I saw that Passan tweet, literally right as we started this show, it just makes all the sense in the world. It adds up now.
Yeah, and I think all of that makes a lot of sense. And we start thinking about David Stearns' track record of what he's done in the past. Offering that amount of money in those amount of years for a reliever that's aging is not really in his playbook. So I think similar to what we see with other teams, this lipstick on a pig or just face value offering, he had to make an offer to the all-star closer, that he had to make that offer. But from a pure performance standpoint, you can kind of look at the caution signs to kind of say David Stearns is probably happy that he has cost-effective Devin Williams instead of Edwin Díaz, because you watch the fastball velocity dip slightly in each of the past two seasons. He sits at 97.2 miles per hour in 2025, which is roughly 2 ticks below where he was at his 2022 peak. He also, Devin, he allowed more hard contact than usual, posting 88.5 miles per hour average exit velocity, a 39.7 hard hit rate, both of the second highest marks of his career behind his disastrous 2019 season. And even so, His swing and miss ability remains elite, of course, 38% strikeout rate, 18% swinging strike rate, numbers most relievers can only dream about. But if I'm David Stearns, he's probably smiling because he didn't want Edwin Díaz to sign for that amount of money. I don't think he truly wanted him back. I think he probably wanted Devin Williams, but he had to make it clear to the fan base you could not offer it to him because this is part of the PR public relations piece that they have to placate to the fans that are saying, oh, we tried. We gave him the money. It's the same story we hear for the Pirates offering money with people. David Stearns probably didn't want Edwin Díaz back. And I know a lot of Met fans don't want to hear that.
I mean, it's crazy to think about. I don't completely dismiss that thought. Like, you might be right. Like I look at this is one thing. So steamer projections for next year, Edwin Díaz, 66 innings pitched, 2.9 ERA. They have Devin Williams at 64 innings pitched, 3.14 ERA, relatively similar. Obviously, given Díaz the better projection on ERA. Díaz 34% K rate, Williams 31%, 9% walk rate for Díaz, 11% walk rate for Devin Williams, 5.7% barrel rate for Díaz, 5.9% for Devin Williams. So you look at that, and you could convince yourself that relatively similar. So take Devin Williams on the cheaper deal. You're the New York Mets with the richest owner in baseball. Like, why not both? Going for this cheaper option stuff, and he is obsessed with years. And like, as a fan, I am usually cautious of that too. Like, I even last year before bringing Pete back for one more year, I said, like, I don't think I want, as much as I love Pete Alonso, I don't think I want him for 7 years. But this guy is being a little too cautious. We're also getting reports that they're out of the market for Tatsuya Imai, Framber Valdez, and those kind of guys because they don't like the years that they'll have to give. Like, this is what it costs to be in the mix for these dudes, and you have the means to be in every single one of these things. We talk about all the time with him. He's just gotten too cute, and he is continuing to get too cute. And I kind of said this tongue in cheek when I put that instant reaction earlier on Twitter of like anything short of trading for Tarek Skubal right now without giving away like tons and tons of talent that the Mets fans might not want to see go all in one bag. Like, I don't know how you make this a good offseason. I don't know. You have so much work to do. Joel Sherman has said this a couple times today in interviews of like, you look at the Yankees and like, yeah, their fans want them to do something, but if they needed to play baseball right now, they could, and they'd be in good shape. They'd be in good shape right now. The Mets can't field a freaking team right now. They have like less than half a bullpen, 1/3 of an outfield, and that 1/3 is Juan Soto, who is a terrible defensive outfielder. We've all made that clear, right? Like, and you're still mixing in these guys like Beatty and stuff like that, who we hope, you know, that look last year was real and he's going to be the real deal. But like, we've seen other guys like Vientos look great one year and then the next year not look so great. So like, what are you hanging your hat on right now? You said from the very beginning, like, the pitching staff is not good enough to compete with the Phillies and probably the Braves, who should be better this year, right? I doubt they're down again. There's so much work to be done. And he was asked about the outfield today, and all he said, and I guess this is partly like GM speak of like raising your prospects value, but he was just like, listen, we did the Nimmo trade because we wanted to clear room for all these young outfielders that we have that are super talented. And he names Carson Bench, who we've talked about, Jet Williams, AJ Ewing, maybe one other mixed in there. Even Ryan Clifford, who's more of a first baseman, in my opinion. But I get it, but I sure as hell hope that is not his entire plan. Like, if he goes out and signs Michael King, who I like very much, by the way, and that's basically it, goes with what we had starting pitching other than that, kind of band-aid some of the bullpen spots, because we know he doesn't like giving big contracts for bullpen. Maybe a Pete Fairbanks to kind of pair with Devin Williams. I could see that. And then letting the youngsters battle out for the outfield along the likes of like Tyrone Taylor. And I could see him bringing in like another cheap outfield contract, like an Adolis Garcia, until the young guys are ready. That is not even close to good enough in Mets fans' eyes. Not even close when you have Steve Cohen as your, like, we dealt with the Wilpons for years who would not open the checkbook. So like, there is so much to be disappointed and angry about today. And I think the fear is that it's not going to get better. Pete Alonso, I'm at the point now where I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if he's back. Like, you can be optimistic and say, well, now we have more money that we didn't put towards Díaz to go make sure Pete comes back. We can't let Nimmo, Díaz, and Pete all leave the same offseason, can we? I'm here to tell you that's probably happening. Okay, Pete Alonso is getting interest other places. Baltimore is talking to him. The Red Sox are interested, and he's interested in the Red Sox from what I hear. And I think there's the Giants who, credit to you, I pushed back when you said that in the free agent draft because I didn't understand, like, Bryce Eldridge has got to be there. Now there's these rumors that they really might look to trade Eldridge for pitching, which would make sense to bring in a Pete Alonso. So there is interest there. And now all the talk is that the Mets don't want to go past 3 years for Pete Alonso. So, like, Diaz felt disrespected. I think to a degree, Nimmo probably felt disrespected and waived his no trade clause. What are the chances that Pete Alonso is going to feel disrespected by the Mets? I think they're super high.
For sure. And I think he's already feeling disrespected. We discussed it last week, just the fact that they're willing to let their all-time franchise home run leader go. And I know that doesn't hold water right now as like, what can you do for me lately? You don't want to pay for what's been. That doesn't make you a good general manager. But Pete Alonso has to be looking himself in the mirror like, I've done a lot for this franchise. You need to treat me with more reverence and respect. And he is a guy, he's going to get paid somewhere. Why not buy his hometown team that he's made all these moments for, selling jerseys, etc. And part of the David Stearns thing, it's very confuddling to me, Devin, because of the Juan Soto piece. We mentioned we're 366 days ago, we had this monster deal. It doesn't fall in line of like, that's an all-in move. That's a move you make for a team that's like, we don't give a shit about cost. Obviously, he was vetoed by the owner. The owner wanted it done. And the rest of this team is being put together under David Stearns' vision. And that, to me, is two distinctly different visions of how this team is. And if we sit here a year from now talking about the season, looking back on it, would it shock me that Devin Williams had a better season than Edwin Díaz? Probably, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I think David Stearns' cost and value dollar for cent, he's probably looking at Devin Williams as worth the price of admission. Meanwhile, Edwin Díaz, that contract may not age well, and the Dodgers don't care. But let's put the Dodger lens on for 1 second. This move pushes the Dodgers further into unprecedented territory for them. They're already more than $60 million over the $244 million first-tier luxury tax threshold, meaning this Diaz deal will be taxed at the maximum 110% rate, resulting in an estimated $25.3 million in tax penalties alone. So assuming an evenly distributed $23 million annual salary, projections now place the Dodgers 2026 payroll at over $359 million. And that figure does not account for the massive deferrals, of course, attached to players like Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Tanner Scott. So the Dodgers, I mean, it barely registers for them. They don't care. They're operating in full. We want another World Series. They routinely sacrifice draft capital. We mentioned the compensatory picks. They just want the talent on the field. The goal is no longer like, we just want to be there. They've already touched the goal. They want it one more time. And they're trying to win 3 straight World Series, the first time since the 1998-2000 Yankees. They see it. It's right there. They don't care about the future. Will the Dodgers be good in 2037? I don't think they care. They don't care. They want to spend the money right now. Sleep when you're dead type of attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that this comes on the heels of Dave Roberts, like, just said a day or two ago that he doesn't feel like they need to do anything. He doesn't feel like they need any big moves this offseason. They think they can just run out and do it again. Then they add one of the best closers in the game, take it away from an NL rival. And he also came out and said now twice that he's in support of a salary cap, which seems very anti-Dodger, as long as there's a salary floor, which I believe there has to be. If you do that, that's a whole nother conversation. But to then turn around and do this, don't be shocked if they're not done and they go get Cody Bellinger to help in the outfield, because their only other weakness, if you really want to poke holes, is sometimes the outfield feels like a man short of like having elite production out there. And if they don't go that route because they really don't want to keep on pushing over that salary cap number, they have the assets to go trade some guys to go get an outfielder, because other than Bellinger and Tucker, the outfield market as far as free agency goes is, it's pretty sad. You got Tucker, you got Bellinger, Harrison Bader if you're looking for defense and an occasional offensive production there, Max Kepler, that kind of stuff, Mike Tauchman, like Yastrzemski out there too. You're not looking at the elite outfield free agent class. So I could absolutely see them moving a couple young pieces like we've seen them do before to get a proven outfielder in here. Yeah, man. I mean, everyone thought last year was going to be the year that maybe they like come close to breaking the wins record, and they came way short of that. We might have just been a year early. It might be this year. You're adding, I mean, that back end of the bullpen suddenly now, if all these guys are back there, looks insane. And The division, I think, as far as the NL West is going to be weakened because I don't think the Padres will be as good from what it looks like. Giants, they got to prove that they're more than a 500 team. So this could be the year where they're like well over 100 wins.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Dodgers. I mean, they were in survival mode for most of the year where Evan Phillips couldn't stay healthy. Tanner Scott, we know his struggles were just insane for who he is as a player. So you can imagine he's going to bounce back. And they won a World Series. We remember it so famously. Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto pitching in high leverage relief roles. If you have Edwin Diaz in that role, and this is not just for the postseason, this is going to be for the regular season. If Edwin Diaz is the pitcher you saw with the Mets for the last couple years, he had 3 separate sub-2 ERA campaigns. He has maintained a strikeout rate that's never dipped below 34.6% in the immediate. This deal is going to help them right now. But as we said, David Stern doesn't want to be on the other end of that deal aging, and that's a tough pill for the Mets to swallow. I feel like Met fans want more than that.
I mean, I don't even, again, I don't know if it's the aging thing or if it really is true that, like you said, like he's kind of putting these offers out there to make it look like they tried and put it more on Diaz than him. But I think when I see that Jeff Passan tweet about them not giving Diaz a heads up about the Devin Williams signing, like that stinks to high heaven for me. Do you think I'm overreacting about that? Or was it if you're in the same situation with Brian Cashman in a situation like this, and a big piece of your team gets away for $3 million difference, and then you find out part of it might be because he didn't like how the GM went about it. Like, would you feel the way I feel right now? Because when I see that tweet, that has pissed me off more than any other thing of this story. The money, the years, him leaving for the Dodgers, the fact that you cannot pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, this is what we're thinking," to get his blessing.
Yeah,
like that it infuriates me.
Yeah, it's not an overreaction from the fan standpoint, but I do see David Stern's perspective, and he better hope that Devin Williams is as advertised, because if he's not, as we mentioned, watching, let's just say when Diaz closing out a World Series win, like that's a really bad optic, especially with how last year went.
Sure.
There's a lot of pressure on David Stearns and the Mets this year because of what happened last year. It's not like we're coming off of the NLCS appearance that they just came off. They came off of not making the playoffs with one of the highest payrolls in all of baseball, spending all that money on Juan Soto, and you don't make the playoffs, and this is the answer to you have in the offseason. The cockiness rubs people the wrong way because he feels like he knows better than everybody, and it only resonates positively if you sit there and you prove everybody wrong, and he better prove people wrong this year.
He's got a lot of work to do, man. He needs a win quick because it's been a long time since he's gotten one. Like, someone commented on my initial reaction today saying, like, short of the Soto signing, which again, I think most of us attribute more to Steve Cohen wanting a shiny thing and doing whatever he had to do to get it. Like, what wins has David Stearns got? And off the top of my head, I was able to name the Luis Severino, Sean Manaea signings before the 2024 season. Ended up being really good for him, right?
That's some dumpster dive in luck, though. I mean, those analytics, right? That's a little bit of luck that comes into it.
And for a while we all praised, like, whoa, look at what the Mets like pitching analysis is doing for these two guys. This looks amazing. It's going to become a destination for pitchers.
And then Frankie last year took that and threw it out the window.
Last year, it shows, and Manaea couldn't get right either once he came back healthy. So like that's worn out now. And literally, like I have a hard time thinking of what other wins David Stearns has got. I feel like I've been on here way more often criticizing and saying, what is this guy doing, than saying, great move. And I'm trying. I am not just an outright David Stearns hater. I am trying to give this dude the benefit of the doubt. And I'm trying to convince myself he does have a plan and this money is going to be spent elsewhere. And I'm going to look at the team on opening day and be like, you know what? This team is in a better position to go to the playoffs this year than they were. He got the excuse he needed to kind of blow this thing up a little bit and really put it in his light that he wants it in when they missed the playoffs. That's partly on the players. It's also on him because his trade acquisitions, most of them blew up in his face. But I don't know, man. I don't know where they go from here. They have so much to do. There's guys out there to target, but I'm just not convinced that he's going to do what's necessary. I feel like he always kind of gets a little trigger shy, whether it's making a big trade and giving up some of the young assets or, going the extra years or dollars to get someone who is super helpful for the next several years in Queens. So I'm waiting. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what the next move is for David Stearns here.
So let's head to their NL East counterpart with the Philadelphia Phillies making a loud offensive statement this winter by keeping the heart of their lineup exactly where it is. The Phils are finalizing a 5-year, $150 million deal to bring back Kyle Schwarber per Jeff Passan earlier today. Bob Nightingale went on to confirm this deal. He said it's a clean $30 million per year structure. Schwarber obviously is represented by the XL Sports Management. We discussed that with multiple open 40-man roster spots. Philadelphia will not need a corresponding move. Kind of continues where we're going to go here. On the surface, obviously, this contract breaks a lot of the traditional free agent rules we look at. Schwarber is primarily a DH. That is a check against him, playing the outfield just 13 total games over the past 2 seasons. So he's not really going to play the field for you. And he also turns 33 years old in March. 2 traits that are almost always suppressing long-term money. But everyone recognized the importance of Schwarber in Philadelphia. Historically, age 33, free agents rarely see massive guarantees, and pure DH almost never do. I mean, before this deal, you can go and look at some of the metrics here. The largest contract ever given to a free agent age 33 or older, it was Josh Donaldson, $92 million deal. And really the only free agent DH to crack 9 figures is Shohei Ohtani, and obviously the outlier because he's a two-way superstar and he is a unicorn, if you will. I mean, you can go back to JD Martinez's 5-year, $110 million deal with the Red Sox when he still played the outfield. And Schwarber's making the exceptions. And I agree with this deal. It makes sense. I mean, Schwarber was sought after by a lot of teams. We just saw the report come out that Baltimore was in on him. We saw Pittsburgh throw their hat in the ring. This is, he's really one of baseball's premier 3 true outcome sluggers, and he produces 30-plus home runs seasons in his sleep. This guy can hit 50, 60. This is an unbelievable hitter, and I think the Phillies are looking at their window. We can't let it close quite yet.
Yeah, and he's got a flair for the dramatic this year, at least this year too. I feel like the home runs were meaningful as well. It wasn't just like meaningless home runs that he was popping out. I feel like they were very meaningful. MVP candidate this year. The last year or two might not be the greatest look when he gets to that point, 33 years old, like you said already. But I think it was a critical signing for the Phillies. And to be honest, like it's almost all it took for me to be like, I feel like this whole conversation that even we've been involved in of like the Phillies windows closed, it's going to be a new generation. I'm kind of like, hold on a minute. I think all that might have been a little bit overblown. Like he's back in the fray here. To be honest, to me, there's 2 players that are going to determine the success of the Phillies next year, and maybe more than that. Zach Wheeler and Bryce Harper. Zach Wheeler, can he come back from these injuries healthy? Because some of the injuries he's had, we've seen other guys have a little trouble being their old selves afterwards. So can he come back and be the same dude? And then Bryce Harper, who his own GM said he doesn't know if he'll be elite. I mean, this dude is now getting his blood recycled. Did you see this shit? Where
Yes,
to me, it reminds me of like Captain America coming out of the frozen chamber, right? And all of a sudden being Captain America. So he's going to great lengths to make sure that he, makes it so like Dave Dombrowski has to put his foot in his mouth, I guess. But those 2 guys, I think, determine the success of the Phillies. I think they have a chance of being really, really good. I mean, I still look at their pitching staff, and I think if Zach Wheeler's himself, Christopher Sanchez, even if Ranger Suarez is not back in the mix, bring a guy like Andrew Painter up, who people have raved about for a long, long time. Like you're still in pretty good shape and way better shape than most teams out there. So I love it for them. As a Met fan, I was hoping he went elsewhere. Kind of cool to see a team like Baltimore involved. Pittsburgh, I know people are trying to dunk on them and say like it wasn't a real offer. I don't want to get too crazy. Maybe they thought it was. The team I'm most disappointed in, and I know they made an offer, but the Reds, I've said it time and time again on here, I thought they needed to do whatever was necessary to bring the hometown kid there. They apparently were interested mainly because they thought it would increase ticket sales. Like how about it would increase wins, right? And give you a shot to get back to the playoffs and not be kind of a joke of a playoff team. So that was disappointing to see that they were involved, but not necessarily in the thick of it. So an obvious signing for Philadelphia. And my first point
there you
in
go.
our free agent prediction draft, we are now tied 1-1 with lots of players and picks still out there.
You mentioned some of the offers that were made. We mentioned the Pirates. I know the Giants were in on them, and the Reds also you mentioned. But the Pirates offer was stunning to me. 4 years, $120 million deal on the table for him. The biggest free agent contract the Pirates ever gave out was $39 million. So they were willing to throw it all out there and do it. And I think one of the reasons that Schwarber was able to get this money, and obviously there's the the outside the batter's box type of thing here, where he brings a lot of value to the leadership in the clubhouse. That's something that is an intangible that Schwarber brings, but he also like answered the longstanding question we had about him. The platoon splits were essentially gone last year and the year before that. In 2024, he was crushing left-handing pitching to the tune of 300, 407, 490 at 152 WRC plus, and he was excellent against righties. In 2025, he even bettered that, 162 WRC plus versus lefties, 146 versus everyone else, really confirming he wasn't just this one-side back. So that conversation happened while he was in Chicago. That happened while he was in DC, that he was a one-dimensional player at the plate, but he can hit everybody. He became a transcendent hitter, and that might have to do with Philadelphia's hitting coach, the good fit here. And I think he has to recognize, hey, it's fun batting at Citizens Bank Park is my home park, right? So
Yeah,
obviously
not bad for a lefty.
There's still a lot to do for the Phillies. You mentioned there being a lot to do for the Mets, but the Phillies, there's rumors they want to bring back JT Realmuto. His free agency is looming large. We don't know if they're going to bring him back. They also need to remake portions of the outfield and continue adding to the pitching staff. Feels like Nick Castellanos is not going to be there long. We talk about Rob Thomson and his reaction. I think they actually put Castellanos on blast during the winter meetings. I saw a quote, and again, who knows about it, but like essentially said that we want Castellanos to be put in a better situation, and that's not here. Essentially, it's a bizarre relationship that they're just burying this guy. I understand he hasn't been the most fruitful offensive player for you for the past 365 days, but Castellanos is a grown man that plays good baseball, so his ego has to be taking a shot here in this offseason that's running through.
I mean, if he wasn't so bad defensively, I'd be convinced that he's going to be a Met for a year until the youngsters are ready. Like that's a David Stearns kind of move. But David Stearns is also all about run prevention, and Nick Castellanos is as bad as it gets defensively in the outfield. So I do not think that's an actual match there. But yeah, I mean, I think the Phillies are going to be in decent shape, man. I mean, Dave Dombrowski, you got to give him credit, man. Everywhere he goes, he's aggressive. It seems like he makes the moves that need to be made at the right time. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame type of GM there. So a good move for the Phils. Rob Thomson extended back in the fray here. I as of now, I mean, obviously the Mets are very incomplete roster wise, but as of now, I think this is the Phillies division again. Like, I don't know. I think maybe we all made a little bit too much of their demise here. I know their season ended in one of the worst ways we've ever seen a team's season end, with the Orion Kerkering errant throw to home went past Realmuto. But with that being said, still a very good team. Still should be one of the biggest threats to the Dodgers in the National League, even though they got beaten pretty bad in that series this year. So, I mean, I don't really expect them to take a step back now that Schwarber's back in the fray.
So according to Roster Resource, you can go through and look at their payroll. So this pushes the Phillies to approximately $270 million in straight payroll and $289 million in luxury tax payroll. So at the end of 2025, those figures sat at $291 million and $314 million. So that means that ownership probably has about $20 million left to deploy here in the offseason. So that means like they're going to check off some of these to-do lists and figure out what else is there. And Philly fans, like, again, looking at this window, it's if Harper comes back and is the player that Dave Dombrowski doesn't think he is, and Schwarber is the guy that we saw last year hit 56 home runs. Okay, let's run it back one more time with this pitching. And if Zach Wheeler, as you mentioned before, is such a huge piece of what they're going to be doing. And yeah, that is a big piece. But the Schwarber deal, my question to you before we move on from it, do you think this finally knocks loose some of that frozen player market we've seen? Obviously, Trent Grisham, Gleyber Torres accepting the qualifying offers, and Josh Naylor quickly resigning with Seattle. This hitter market has gone 3 weeks without a single multi-year deal. So now that Schwarber's off the board, do you think we're going to get the Bellinger, the Alonso, the Suarez, Bregman, or any of these deals happening in the next 24 hours?
I don't know about 24 hours, but I know we're talking about like winter meetings, but I think my gut tells me the Pete Alonso one is close. Okay, that one, and I'm not going to tell you where I think he's going. There's a few different places in my head. I mean, I hope it's my team. I hope he's back in blue and orange at this point, but like I said earlier, I'm not convinced at all that's happening. I think the Pete Alonso one and or the Cody Bellinger one are the next ones up. That's what I'm convinced. The Bo Bichette, I've heard some rumors about Bichette, but I feel like nothing super concrete yet. Alex Bregman, as we continue to say, it's been relatively quiet on him, so I don't think that one's close. But I would think Alonso or Bellinger. And one other interesting nugget about Schwarber, the fact that he signs on the same day, signs back with Philly the same day that Edwin Díaz leaves the Mets. If you're a Met fan, you know this. No one has dominated Kyle Schwarber more than Edwin Díaz in the career, Schwarber's 0 for 12, 10 strikeouts.
Wow.
He famously struck out Schwarber to end the NLDS in 2024 in that magical run the Mets had when they beat the Phillies and eliminated them at home. So no one is happier than Kyle Schwarber that Diaz is leaving that division. Now, might match up in the playoffs in a big moment. But for now, he's got to be pretty content not seeing that dude as often.
So let's head to the conversation about Cooperstown. We have Jeff Kent finally reaching the pivotal mark here, where he was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame earlier this week by the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee, receiving 14 of 16 votes, well above the 75% threshold required for induction. Of the remaining candidates, Carlos Delgado came closest with 9 votes, while Dale Murphy and Don Mattingly each received 6. And a big conversation about this is Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela all received fewer than 5 votes. So again, before we move on, Jeff Kent, a deserving player, ironically tied with Barry Bonds. Like, a lot of his success is tied to Barry Bonds, so it's hard to see him going in while Barry Bonds receives fewer than 5 votes. And we'll have that conversation in 1 second. What were your thoughts about seeing all this unfold? And it feels like now more than ever that these steroid guys are just not getting in.
Yeah, disappointed in a lot of ways, and I'm not against Jeff Kent getting in, and I guess we'll talk about him and the Bonds tie in a minute. But when I looked at that list, to me, it's Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, and you can debate the other guys. You can kind of go, I can see both sides of the other dudes. So I did not see this coming at all. The fact that Kent was going to be the only guy. There was a lot of talk leading up to this of Dale Murphy and Don Mattingly. So I kind of expected to see the only 2 guys going in as those 2. I really thought those 2 were going to be the guys. I mean, it just brings up the steroid stuff all over again. But people have to remember here, so that the 5 votes thing is important, because those guys now cannot be back on this ballot for another 5-6 years, something like that.
Significant amount of time.
So it's like, if a guy like Bonds or one of those guys gets in, it's going to be a while from now. And I mean, it's hard to believe, like you said, that they're ever getting in at this point until maybe after they die, like Pete Rose, which is a shame and kind of a ridiculous way to do it, in my opinion. But yeah, I was very surprised to see that Jeff Kent was the only one of those 8 guys in. I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, so I think with Kent, I mean, looking at his career, he does deserve to go in. Retires as the most prolific home run hitting second baseman possibly in baseball history. He had 351 home runs from the position. You look at the 4 Silver Sluggers, 5 All-Star selections, in the 2000 National League MVP award, 1 with San Francisco. Again, you can thank Barry Bonds for some of that as well. And from 1997 to 2002, I mean, I would say this is his most pivotal year, where he's stacking up the stats, becoming a star with the Giants, forming that legendary middle of the order pairing with the aforementioned Barry Bonds. Over 900 games played, nearly 4,000 plate appearances with the Giants. He wound up hitting 297, 368, 535 at 175 home runs. And I think, again, you most notably close your eyes and picture Jeff Kent. You probably picture the culmination in a trip to the 2002 World Series, where he had the only World Series appearance in his career. The Giants did fall in 7 games to the Angels, but a very memorable World Series outside of just other moments that he's had in his career. And I think looking at his final 6 seasons with the Astros and the Dodgers, he did remain a middle of the order force. I mean, even to well into his 30s, like, this guy, he slowed down in his final season, but played 2298 as far as career games, over 9,500 plate appearances. The stats are there. But I mean, looking at, you mentioned him shocking to get in. I mean, despite that production, historically, he struggled mightily on the writer's ballot, never receiving more than 46.5% of the votes across 10 years of eligibility. So a crowded ballot during the steroid era probably hurt his chances, and maybe the poor defensive reputation. And another thing that's very similar to the Barry Bonds thing is the combative personality that a lot of people didn't like him with the media. So this reputation followed him. Obviously, his well-documented feud with Barry Bonds became one of the more infamous personality clashes in all modern baseball history. So there's that piece of this that we're not talking about, because if you want to have an objective conversation about what the Hall of Fame is, and I saw a lot of people that are just like, okay, that Barry Bonds is not going to be in the Hall of Fame because his stuff is existing there. They're telling the story. If Jeff Kent goes in the Hall of Fame, I'm sorry, you can't tell the story. Like, that's like putting Robin in without Batman. Barry Bonds is the guy. He's the guy that kind of, I'm not saying he put Jeff Kent to give him his career that is a Hall of Fame career, but batting near Barry Bonds certainly fucking helps for that amount of time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the most glaring statistic I saw, and I tweeted out probably a couple times, I was going a little nuts on Twitter with these results, because you just dig in and it's kind of like hard to take as you dig in more and more. So Kent spent 6 years in San Francisco of his 17-year career. 45% of his career RBIs were in San Francisco when he was batting behind Barry Bonds. I don't know, about 80% of the time in his time in San Francisco. And Bonds, I believe his on base percentage was like 450 or something like that over that time. So like on base almost half the time when Kent was getting up. I mean, people have tweeted also, and it does kind of bring the point home of like, dude, this is the dude that they walked Bonds like intentionally to get to.
Exactly.
Like you're putting the guy that you'd rather face in. Like it's so backwards. And I get it's because of the steroid thing, but like Kent inadvertently also benefited off of Barry Bonds' steroid use in a way.
Sure.
And the sticking point, and this is more of a overall Hall of Fame argument, but the sticking point for me when people say like, no, like we have to draw the line at steroids is there are dudes in the Hall of Fame that did steroids. Like, are we going to pretend there's not? There are guys in the Hall of Fame that just somehow avoided all the conversations and never got outed that absolutely did steroids, or guys in the 80s that were doing amphetamines like crazy. The amount of uppers players were in the 80s were doing, like, come on, we all know that. Read about the 86 Mets. Like, all you got to do is read one of the million books that were written about that team and see the amount of amphetamines that were being used in that clubhouse. And I'm guessing it wasn't just them. So I just can't buy into that. I saw AJ Przinsky on Foul Territory say, he was talking to Buck Showalter and said his opinion is anyone that continued to do steroids after they started enforcing it sometime in the early 2000s, he said he would be fine if we drew a line in the sand and said those guys like A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, no, can't do it. You guys did it when they were enforcing it. But the guys that were doing it when Bud Selig, Hall of Famer, was turning a blind eye to it because he knew it was good for the game, those guys should be allowed in now. They've served their punishment. I mean, you look at Barry Bonds' stats are insane. Every guy that played with him will tell you he's the best player they ever saw. I mean, it's right in front of you. So Jeff Kent, first of all, to not go too far off him, my favorite analytic here, and I've talked about it a few times in the show, is JAWS for Hall of Fame. So if you don't know what JAWS is, it's basically a number that takes your career WAR and averages it with your 7-year peak WAR. So it takes more of a look at, instead of the whole thing, like that 7-year peak mixed with your total WAR. All right, so it takes both into account, but it really does. It's a good list if you go and look at it. So Kent's career or JAWS was 45.6. The average Hall of Fame second baseman JAWS 57. So he falls under the average here. So I know he's the home run leader for second baseman, but not as much of a slam dunk as we might think. When we talk about the integration error, the highest JAWS for any second baseman, Joe Morgan, 80, way up there, stud. The lowest of the integration error for a Hall of Famer, 31.2, which is well below Jeff Kent. That's Bill Mazeroski, who sometimes you get put into the Hall of Fame for a moment. You know, like WWE, like now they induct matches instead of just wrestlers. Bill Mazeroski might be in there in large part due to the Game 7 home run against the Yankees. Like that's
I would say so.
As famous of a moment as we can think of. So Kent, I mean, I'm not saying he should or shouldn't, but like there's argument on both sides when you look at that number. When you go to Barry Bonds and look at the JAWS stuff, and again, I know steroid stuff, but 117.8 on his JAWS, first for all left fielders. Average Hall of Fame left fielder 53.5. He's more than doubling them up. So like you could cut out half of his career and he's still like going to be right there with you. He has the highest, obviously, of the integration error. The lowest Hall of Fame left fielder on the JAWS list is Lou Brock, 38.7. If you go past the integration error to like the early 1900s, you're going to see some really low ones, but obviously the standard's completely different there, which is why I tried to use that, after 1946. But yeah, it's a shame. And then you look at Roger Clemens, same thing, like staggering numbers, 102.6 JAWS, ranked third all time, first all time of starting pitchers in the integration era, and that he's not getting a look either. So it's more of the same.
Yeah, and next year's vote will shift to managers, executives, and umpires, while the classic era players are going to be returning in 2027 before contemporary players are again revisited in 2028. And we mentioned that they've received fewer than 5 votes, and there's a controversial rule change that now they are barred from appearing on the next ballot. We talked about 2031 being the year they can't appear, but now even further, if any of them fail to reach 5 votes again in a future cycle, they will become permanently ineligible for the contemporary player ballots, and that's it. So obviously the stated goal of this is to broaden opportunity for new candidates, but the rule, in my opinion, has been widely interpreted as a procedural way for the Hall of Fame to distance himself from the long-running PET issue that we continue to talk about, all the controversy with it. It's going to affect players like Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Palmeiro. Like, these guys are all sort of lumped together, but I think all of that has to be taken in one separate case of each. And I think Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens are the outliers to this, where their numbers are just too undeniable. And again, you mentioned Bud Selig. His accomplishments are tied with steroid. No matter, he grew the game based on the backs of guys taking steroids. So why is he being honored?
Yeah.
Why is a guy like Jeff Kent going in there when you are really off the blood, sweat, and tears of a guy like Barry Bonds? And we'll get more clarity on the writers' ballot results. They'll be announced on January 20th. Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones are viewed as the top candidates to finally cross that 75% threshold. And any players elected will then join Kent for induction on July 26th in Cooperstown. But yeah, I mean, we saw this era committee featured 7 Hall of Famers: Ozzie Smith, Robin Yount, and some former general managers, including Artie Moreno. Media members, Jason Stark from The Athletic was over there. So yeah, I mean, each voter could select up to 3 candidates, and clearly they all kind of sat there and said, no steroid guys.
Yeah. Just to drive this point home too, and I kind of alluded to it, saying like half the career. So it's pretty widely accepted amongst baseball fans, writers, players, that Barry Bonds was not using PEDs for his entire career. Now, there's the debate about when we think he started. A lot of people like to point to, you know what? It was probably after the 1998 season when he had to sit back and watch Sosa and McGwire get all that attention. Meanwhile, he's putting 40 seasons up and not getting nearly the publicity. A lot of people think that's when he started. So let's just go with that theory. So if you just look at his career before the PEDs, if you think 1998 or after 1998 was the start of it for him, from 86 to 98, he had 99.9 B WAR. And that's not his whole career. That's just maybe before the steroid use. Harold Baines, who was voted into the Hall of Fame by the Today's Game era committee back in 2019, who basically made it in based on longevity, even though he was really like a DH, which was, rare to get in. 38.8 career B WAR. I'll repeat, 38.8 career B WAR. Bonds from 86 to 98, maybe before he used steroids, 99.9 B WAR. And if you want to argue and say, no, you think he used steroids 2 years before that, the number is still way, way above Baines' career. Like, maybe the better argument is that Baines should never have gotten in. But like, what are we doing here? Like, it's too harsh of a punishment when, like we've said a few times on here, Selig, who was in charge, like, it was not necessarily disallowed. Even Bob Gibson, there's a clip of Bob Gibson, I don't know if it was recent or years ago, when he was asked how he perceives these guys. And his words were, there's always been cheating in baseball. He said, if that was going on when I was pitching, I probably would have done it. This is Bob Gibson, open and honest. I love someone finally not being holier than thou and actually like admitting, like, yeah, man, like, we always look for a way to get a leg up. Absolutely. So I'm happy to see a guy like that take that stance. And I know there are other guys out there that feel the same way. It's not enough. Yeah, it just continues to be super disappointing to me. And like you said, I don't necessarily think it's getting fixed.
Yeah, and I think the point of the committee is to get it right, and we'll see if they continue to do this. But it seems like the trajectory is they're making no progress. That's what people watch as far as the Hall of Fame goes, making progress and who has momentum. There is no momentum for two of the best players to ever lace up their cleats ever. But before we wrap up this episode, we did get news about the draft lottery. So the Chicago White Sox have won the 2026 MLB draft lottery. They secured the number 1 overall pick, landing the top spot, entering the drawing with the best odds at 27.73%. The Tampa Bay Rays will select second, followed by the Minnesota Twins at number 3, rounding out the top tier of this year's lottery results. So this marks the 4th edition of the MLB draft lottery, which they put the system in place, the most recent collective bargain agreement, with the goal of discouraging intentional tanking while still allowing the league's weakest teams to access the elite amateur talent, whether it be collegiate or otherwise. So record still influences the draft position, but only the top 6 selections are determined by the lottery, creating a hybrid system that blends a little bit of the reform we discussed with some competitive balance. And they are the 60-win White Sox. They made some progress from last year, the year prior, I should say. And as they becoming the second team in lottery history to convert the best odds in the number 1 pick. The first can go back to 2022 with the Pirates. The Pirates famously landed the top selection. They go on to draft Paul Skeens. In contrast, the previous two lotteries were won by long shots. Cleveland jumped the field in 2023, and the Nats did it in 2024. So we can sit here and we'll preview some of the guys and we'll have more conversations about the talent that's coming out. I mean, you can look at the talent pool. Early favored by a lot of conjecture is Rock Chalosky, who's the shortstop from UCLA, who looks like he's going to be the most complete player in the draft class. Obviously, things will change over the course of time. We have a little bit of time to get there. But Grady Emerson, Justin LeBron of Alabama, they're also on top of the board. So we'll have more conversations. Maybe we'll get some NCAA guys that are experts on here to discuss it. But yeah, this was big news here, and congrats to the White Sox. This is like, they need to infuse as much talent in the South side as possible to get them back to where they need to be competitive.
Yeah, well, it's bigger news for the White Sox fans this year, specifically because of Rock Chalosky. This guy is apparently, from everything I'm reading, one of the best prospects we've seen in a long time. There are people out there saying that he is the best shortstop draft prospect in the last 20 years. Let me remind you, like, there's been like Bobby Witt Jr. out there, like not 20 years ago. So that's saying a lot. They're saying, like you said, like as complete a player as you can get. So you talked about the Pirates cashing in for Paul Skeens when they were able to get in this position. The White Sox likely, unless something drastic happens, are going to be able to cash in this chip for Rock Chalosky. And from everything I'm reading and watching, they think this is the type of guy who will be ready to get to the bigs pretty quickly. Like his path will be pretty quick. Now, things change over a college season. Let's not forget, Jace Laviolette's name was everywhere as the college season was about to get started last year, and as the likely number one pick. And he didn't even go close to number one. He and Texas A&M as a whole had a surprisingly rough season. So things like that happen. But Chalosky, man, he is beloved by every single analyst I have seen. So if you're a White Sox fan, like there hasn't been a lot to get excited about over the last several years. This has got to get your blood flowing. You got a glimpse of the future. Now you can watch this guy all season play college ball and just like get more and more excited as you kind of pay attention to what he does. So cool if you're a Chicago White Sox fan. And just overall, I love the fact that they went to a lottery, MLB.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing, as I was digging deeper into this, that they also have this like built-in restriction that non-revenue sharing teams are barred from winning the lottery, which means in back-to-back years, no franchise can pick in the lottery 3 straight seasons, and those rules eliminated the Rockies, the Nationals, and the Angels from the eligibility in this at all. And the biggest jumpers were the Giants, who finished exactly at 500, just outside wildcard pitcher. They landed the 4th overall pick, and the Kansas City Royals, fresh off a playoff position the year prior, they landed the 7th despite finishing above 500 for the 2nd straight season. So it feels like this is working a little bit to dissuade people from tanking. And that's what you really want, to make sure you're not having these teams compile and say, we're going to keep losing and, trust the process like we had with Philadelphia years prior, which again, I think that's proven to be that unsustainable and doesn't work, because I think losing is contagious. And the more losing you do becomes like this insidious soil that you can't grow anything in. And I was listening to them talk about this with the San Jose Sharks. Like, yeah, but they want them to lose because they need more talent. But these young kids, like, let them go out there and get experience. And winning does affect people positively and helps the development. So, I think that this shows like the rankings of the teams that are picking. It shows that this new built-in restriction of the system is working.
Yeah, and I love it. I love that they're locking those teams out of having a chance at this. To be honest, like, good for them. Even my Mets had a very, 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 very outside chance of winning this thing. And if they won it, I think then it would have been a Patrick Ewing Knicks lottery moment where people start saying it's rigged. I'm sure something like that will happen years down the road, where someone who's not even in the mix of the top 3 suddenly moves up and gets the first pick and gets a big prospect. But I mean, it's exciting times for these teams that are picking, in the top 5 or so from it's not only Chalosky. I mean, he seems to be the big time guy, but from everything I'm looking at very early, obviously it's college season is a while away still. Most people think this 2026 draft class is stronger than the 2025 class that we just saw.
So we're going to wrap up today. Obviously, there will be more news that probably drops tomorrow, hopefully with the winter meeting still taking place in Orlando. So we'll keep you guys abreast of everything going on our social media platforms at Tablesetters Pod, on also X and Instagram. Make sure you guys follow along. And if you're listening and for the first time, you're just getting back into baseball because you took a break after the World Series, welcome back. And if you're enjoying the show, we appreciate that. If you can leave a 5-star review on any of the platforms that you listen to us, whether it be Spotify or Apple, which makes me also, I want to extend some thanks to people that had us in the top 5 of your Spotify rap. So that was pretty cool to see that a lot of people were posting that as well. So shout out to the people that listen on a daily basis and enjoy what we bring out to the table. We try our best to give you guys content, whether it be weekly or sometimes multiple times a week with some guests. And we're going to continue driving that force throughout this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Big thanks to those people. That's pretty awesome. I'm sorry. Did I yell tonight? I'm sorry if I yelled, guys. Did I yell?
No,
a
you're
little
good,
bit?
man. This is part of the deal here. This is supposed to be cathartic and therapeutic for you to get it out there so you're not yelling at random people on the train home about the Mets, right?
It's festering all day. It's festering all day. And I'm like getting, I'm busy. Quickly open Twitter, get a new little nugget about it, and busy, then get something new. And then right before the show, they didn't give Edwin Díaz a heads up that they're going to sign Devin Williams. Idiots.
I've been refreshing MLB trade rumors all day. I have my Jeff Passan Twitter notifications on as well. And these things are popping up. And we've had other stories that we had in the notes that are just like, feels like there's no fuel to the fire type of thing. You know, we can talk about the Suarez rumors. We could have sat here all night and talked about all the things that are happening. And I saw there was a report that the Mets are open to trading David Peterson. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. We're trying to give you guys really the meaty portion of it. And hopefully you guys feel like you are caught up, because if you're sitting there and by the time yesterday, I believe that there was Steven Matz was signed with the Rays, and that was the biggest story in Orlando. Like people are gathering at a conference that are looking for all this, the media, and they want the news and stuff. And that's the news that drops. And, you know, we finally got some big news that I was happy to sink my teeth into it tonight with you.
Yeah, we said just as yesterday, I think we said like, all right, let's target this date like later in the week, unless something happens. Maybe we'll jump on tomorrow night. And sure enough, something happened. And that's how the offseason goes. We kind of will jump on when there's big stories. And like I said, I do get the feeling that there's more to come in these next few days. I do not think we're done here. And a little bit of a pit in my stomach, a little nervous about what happens with the polar bear here, because it doesn't seem to be going well for the Mets right now.
Just quickly, your thoughts on Scott Boras, his like poetic ramblings that he tries to put in hints about where the players are going. It pisses me off. Like, he's trying to be funny, and it just comes off as just the worst attempt at it at all. Like, he thinks he's want to talk about Stern's cocky grin. Scott Boras talking like that to the media. What a waste of time. Like, what a waste of time.
I will say I respect his commitment to the bit, because like, it's one thing to do it once. He's now done this a couple years in a row, by the way. This is not the first year he's doing it. But it's getting more ridiculous. He's got to have a writer. Like, there's definitely someone that is writing this shit for him.
Is he in his hotel room in the mirror just practicing this? Because he's not reading off a card. He's talking.
He probably calls up John Heyman and be like, yo, Heyman.
Or he's like the WWE referee.
Let me know.
With the thing in his earpiece. Like, you got to say this. Don't forget to mention giant. Don't forget to mention rare birds.
And eventually he's going to say the wrong word that he actually thought he heard in his headphone, and it wasn't. Yeah, I respect the commitment to the bit. That's what I'll say.
Well, we'll be back soon talking all things baseball. We appreciate the support as always. And until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.